And welcome back to 120 Months. We are walking our way through MTV's 120 Minutes, everybody's favorite indie rock alternative show from back in the day. I'm here with Keith Porterfield and Scott Mobley. My name is Michael Millard, and we are each picking a song that played in that month, actually a video, technically, that played in the month of October of 1988 for this particular episode. And we're just talking about the band, talking about the song, talking about the video, all three, just whatever struck us about that particular video. Will come up in conversation, and this episode is quite a lineup of certainly college radio iconic across the board songs and bands. Not only did we pick some pretty iconic bands, but sometimes in past episodes the songs maybe haven't been like their best work or one of our favorites. In this case, the songs and the bands are all super solid across the board, so it'll be really interesting to talk about that. I will say, as like a spoiler alert, in watching you guys' choices, I don't have a ton of notes on the videos for opposite reasons. With Keith's choice, the video was kind of so generic, I didn't have anything to say about it. And with Scott's choice, there's so freaking much going on in that video. I didn't even know where to start to like make a note about that video.
The word whirlwind comes to mind.
It just comes at you like a fire hose. So that'll be fun to talk about. I don't know what you guys were able to glean from it. It is something. So that'll be fun to talk about. Real quick, we'll talk just briefly about the musical landscape in 1988 in October. It's really pretty similar to the last couple episodes. If you listen to the series, music didn't change as quickly back then. It wasn't as fast moving. So you still have kind of the same songs that we talked about before, like Love Bites is getting played all the time. Red Red Wine by UB40, Cheap Trick, Don't Be Cruel, and Bobby Brown, Don't Be Cruel, which I still find delightful. Sweet Child of Mine, Fallen Angel. It's kind of interesting to see that over the course of a couple months, MTV's main rotation really, songs were coming in and out a little bit, just like they would in Top 40, but they weren't changing on a monthly basis the way nowadays. I think, not that there's even really such a thing as Top 40 radio anymore, I don't really know, but songs I think come and go kind of more quickly through the zeitgeist than they used to. Maybe that's just my opinion of it, but it just feels that way looking at these lists. But that was kind of the landscape we're looking at, and of course 120 Minutes was meant to highlight bands and songs that weren't in MTV's main rotation, and a lot of times they would look to college radio to find those songs or those bands. And I think in this case it is very, very, very clear that all three of these probably came from somebody hearing on college radio first and then deciding, hey, we should showcase this on 120 Minutes. So we're going to look at three of those, and we're going to kick it off with Keith Porterfield.
All right, well, for this episode I have chosen the song Sweet Jane by the Cowboy Junkies.
Sweet Jane, sweet Jane, sweet, sweet Jane.
Start off a little bit about the band. The Cowboy Junkies were a Canadian band formed in Toronto in 1985. Largely a group of siblings. It's Michael, Peter, and Margot Timmins. Michael plays guitar, Peter is the drummer, Margot is on vocals, and then they have a bass player called Alan Anton. And those four people have been the Cowboy Junkies for their entire existence. These are not one of those bands that we've seen a lot of lately where there's like one guy that's kind of the mastermind of the entire thing and then just a revolving cast of musicians around him. It's been these four. They do have another guy named Peter Bird that has played with them pretty much since the beginning. He's on all of the albums except for the first one and has also been on all of their tours. But for some reason, they apparently refused to bring him into the band. I don't know why. He is not officially a member of the band, but he's not. It kind of reminds me of REM back in the day. Peter Holzapfel, who was like the dedicated sideman for REM, but never got any credit for it. So yeah, the Cowboy Junkies have one of those. They've got Peter Bird as their sideman who never gets credit. So
that's so fun. I was just about to say he's the Peter Holzapfel of Cowboy Junkies, and you beat me to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, what would be the difference for just, or they have to give him a little bit better paycheck if they actually called him a member of the band? Is that what it is? Who knows?
That's probably all it is, honestly.
Yeah.
And it could be something where like his management does not want that for him. Like they don't want his name on those albums because it means they couldn't do something else. I don't know. You never know where that road leads you, but they had something that stupid, I guarantee it.
Well, let's go with that. Let's because that lets us think that the Cowboy Junkies are maybe a little less petty than we might otherwise think they were.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that. This song, Sweet Jane, is off the 1988 album called The Trinity Session. This album actually is really interesting. It was recorded in the Toronto Church of the Holy Trinity, an actual church there that is famous for its acoustics, has really good acoustics. And so they wanted to record an album there. Because they are a rock band, or rock-ish anyway, they were worried that the church wouldn't want them to do that. So they lied to get the church to allow them to record there. They told them that they were a band called the Timmins Family Singers, and they were recording a Christmas special for a radio broadcast, and then went inside and instead recorded a rock and roll album. So we got to give them more props for that, just because that's a kind of a cool thing to do, to get yourself into a cool recording space. But the other cool thing about this is that this album was recorded in takes, not in regular sessions where one musician plays their part and then another musician comes in and plays theirs or whatever. They set up in the room with a microphone right in the center, and the band surrounded the mic in a circle formation around one microphone and recorded live, and recorded this album all in one shot. Just each song is a take. There's one song on there that's not the case for. It's the song called Mining for Gold. That one was actually recorded later, but everything else on this album was recorded in that one session. And they have said that nothing on this record was mixed, overdubbed, or edited in any way. It just was recorded to tape and then put out. And so they did that on purpose. They were kind of rebelling against kind of the 80s music of the time, where it was a lot of, as they said, drum machines and MIDI were what they were not happy about, the way music was being made. And so this was what they decided to do, kind of just to as a to thumb their nose at that a little bit, is just to record an album straight up, just the band playing live. And if you listen to it, it sounds fantastic. It's hard to believe that was actually done all in just one takes, first takes, or probably not first takes. They probably did the songs more than one time, but still, it sounds great to not have any overdubs or any editing or anything like that on there. So I thought that was really cool. This song, Sweet Jane, is a cover of a Velvet Underground song of the same name, or obviously the same song. But what's funny about that is that they covered a version of it that is not the actual album version of this song. This song was recorded in a live show back in 1969. And then in 70 was included on the album Loaded. I believe that album was called Loaded, if I remember right. Something I probably should have written down in my notes. And when they recorded it for the album, they sped it up and kind of rocked it up a little bit, and kind of has this kind of shuffling rock groove to it that was different than what their original live version of it was. And then that live version that was recorded in 69 got put out on a live album that came out later. I think it was 72, 73 when that live album came out. That's the version that the Cowboy Junkies heard and liked and covered. And it's much slower than the version that's on Loaded, much more mellow. And the Cowboy Junkies, that was right in the Cowboy Junkies wheelhouse. I mean, they did a fantastic job of this. It's very slow, it's very mellow, very atmospheric, just a beautiful song, and a really great showcase for Margot Timmins' voice. She does a fantastic job singing on this one. The song, it didn't get a lot of chart success or anything like that. It did get played some on college radio. It got included on a couple of soundtracks. It's on the soundtrack for the Oliver Stone song, Natural Born Killers. It also got included on the soundtrack for one of the seasons of Stranger Things. So that's actually pretty recently that one showed up. Man, I love this song. I've loved it pretty much since the first time I heard it. And I can tell you the exact first time I heard the song. It was at KTXT. This is one that came up on a playlist of mine at one point that I, put on and listened to as I was going through my shift. And I recall not having ever heard of it, not ever having heard of the Cowboy Junkies at the time, and just kind of just sitting there and listening to it. And like I said, it's a very mellow, very pretty song. And I remember just being kind of transfixed by it and just kind of standing there in the studio and listening to it, to the point where I had to scramble to get my next song queued up. I mean, I kind of just lost myself in this song listening to it, even that very first time. And that's kind of my experience with it every time since then. I just love this song. It's just one you can sit back, close your eyes, and just kind of, melt into a little bit. And it's just a beautiful song. Perfect for, late night, after hours, you're winding down. If you've got that playlist for mellow after hours music already and don't have this song on it, I highly recommend it. If you don't already have that playlist, this is track number 1 for you. Add it right now. Sweet Jane by the Cowboy Junkies. Start your mellow late night playlist with this one. It's a great one. The only other song I really know by these guys is one called Me and the Devil Blues. I said a minute ago I'd never heard of Cowboy Junkies before. That's not true. I had heard of them by this song called Me and the Devil Blues that's on the soundtrack to the movie Pump Up the Volume, which we actually talked about in an early episode of the 35,000 Watts podcast. So those are really the only Cowboy Junkie songs I'm real familiar with. I have heard a little bit more of this album, Trinity Session. I've not heard much of the other stuff that these guys have done over the years. They are an ongoing band. They're still together, still recording. They put out something like 18 or 19 albums over the years, have a big following. I know, as I said, they recorded this one kind of spare and, intakes and whatnot. They have gone back and done regular recording on other albums since then. So they've had, like I said, a long and storied career. But I have to admit, I've never really checked in on much more than this song. I just have always really loved this song. The video is not much to write home about. It's kind of just a performance video with them like on a soundstage somewhere. It's got some other imagery floating around through it, but it's largely just them. The one thing that's kind of cool about it, and the only kind of remarkable feature at all, is that it does have a lot of play with light and shadow. So there's a lot of shadows falling across the members as they're playing or singing and then emerging into the light and that kind of thing. It's fine. It's cool. It kind of fits the song a little bit, but it's not, not a video that's going to change your thoughts about what music video should be or anything like that. So I don't really have a whole lot else on this. Like I said, I have always loved this song. And I can't say that it ever really got me to take a deeper dive into the Cowboy Junkies. You guys may actually be bigger fans of these guys than I am. I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. But this song, I absolutely love this song. This is like a 10 stars out of 10 cover song for me. And not very rarely will I say the cover outstrips the original song, but this is one of those that, in my opinion, the Cowboy Junkies version of this song, Sweet Jane, is the definitive version of it. So yeah, that's the Cowboy Junkies, Sweet Jane.
I'm right there with you on several things. One of those being not knowing a damn thing about the Cowboy Junkies, to be perfectly honest. Discovering Sweet Jane at KTXT while on the air. I would have guessed it was actually released later because it seemed to come up so often at KTXT for whatever reason. I'm sure it was in one of the, Rec Plus or like one of the higher recurrent categories, but it had to have been, not in power rotation at that point. That would have been 5 or 6 years later. But I definitely associate that song with KTXT, even though it did come out, years before I got there. So it must have been, a favorite of people to play, and for good reason. I mean, it's just a really, really good song. I agree that it's superior to the Velvet Underground version, both Velvet Underground versions. I'm sure there are people that think that's blasphemy, but I mean, sometimes that happens. There are examples that we've talked about in some of our covers episodes, and I just feel like this is one of them. And it's not that Cowboy Junkies are better than Velvet Underground or more groundbreaking or any of that. It's just that this song fits them perfectly, fits her voice perfectly. They nailed the vibe. Amazing that they did it essentially in one take, or in a single take. That's pretty cool. I love that's how they recorded that album. It's funny when they're railing against drum machines and MIDI, and I'm like, those are two of my favorite things. Like, I love that stuff, but I appreciate where they're coming from. 40 years ago, feeling that way about that, and I'm sure they probably have similar feelings about AI and that kind of stuff, and I do share those feelings, so I get where they're coming from. I have loved many songs that were based on drum machines and MIDI sequencers, but that aside, it is very cool that's how they recorded it. It's a great song. The video is what it is. I mean, what else are you going to do with a song like this?
What video are you going to make for this song?
You can't, and so it's like, well, why bother? And I didn't really think about the fact that the lighting is actually kind of the star of that show. Like the way they have it lit and shot is really beautifully done, considering how crappy the backdrop is, and that they don't really have a concept beyond just filming the band. And then there's like chains and roses.
The video is highlighting her, and that's what you should do with this song. She's the star.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And this is the first time I've ever seen it. The first time I ever saw her, I had no idea. I've known that song almost well enough that I could sing it, but had never really, looked into the Cowboy Junkies. So that was kind of cool, and she is absolutely highlighted beautifully in the video. The only other thing that I noticed, and just to have something to say about the video or the song, probably because I haven't listened to it super closely all the way through, and I really do try to like watch these and pay attention so I have something to talk about. The last 30 seconds, the ride cymbal is really distracting, and I don't know if it's the mix that's on YouTube or if I just have not really paid attention because it's kind of the end of the song, and by then maybe, especially as a DJ, you're starting to get the next song ready, maybe you don't pay attention to it, but like, it's really, the whole thing is beautifully mixed, and it actually makes more sense now that I'm thinking about it, if they did it in a single take, that maybe, a couple things may not be just perfect, or like the drums are going to bleed into other stuff because of the way you're recording it. It makes a little bit more sense. But I was like, man, they have that ride cymbal just jacked up in the last 30 seconds. Like, it is really overwhelmingly distracting for some reason. I never had noticed that before, but it actually kind of makes sense in the context of what you said. That is a really, really petty argument, and the only negative thing I could say about anything else that's going on here. So, yeah, 2 thumbs up. Great song. Absolutely great for a chill playlist where you're just wanting to kick back and like relax. And if you don't know the song, yeah, go check it out. Top notch.
I had kind of a roller coaster ride with this this week. I was really excited when I saw you pick this song because I've always liked it, and I definitely remember it from its heyday. Like it wasn't KTXT when I found this song. I was definitely in high school, and I actually owned the cassette single of this song to age myself a little bit,
or the single, if you will.
Yeah, a single, exactly. I was in high school. It would be a few years before I discovered the Velvet Underground. I don't think I knew this was a cover at the time. I did buy the single. I remember somebody telling me to listen to the whole album, which I did, and it was kind of a no thanks for me. It was just way too mellow for what I was doing at the time musically, but I did like this song. So years later, I finally hear the Velvet Underground's Sweet Jane, and it is nothing like this. I mean, not the version I heard, right? I heard the one from Loaded. It was like a completely different song. It has 2 similarities, the riff and the words Sweet Jane. Like, even all the lyrics are different, right? So I always assumed that Cowboy Junkies had just kind of done their own take on it, and I really thought that was cool. I thought it was like they took this song and kind of really genuinely made it their own thing. So this week, in doing like a little digging on this, I found out that they are actually doing a cover of this live version that I had never heard before. And I put that on, and it is exactly this. Like, it is this tempo, it is these lyrics, they are doing a cover of that specific song. And I'm not sure why, but it kind of changed my take on this. I think I liked this more when I thought it was its own original thing. And I still give them a lot of credit. They did record it in one take with a single mic, and her voice is beautiful, and the instrumentation is beautiful. It's a great song, and I love the mood of it. I like the way they did it. I just think that it's not quite the groundbreaking cover that I thought it was, and that was a little disappointing to me to find that out. So, but yeah, really, I mean, that's a petty argument at best. I love this song. I think it's beautiful. I think her voice is beautiful. I think the arrangement of this is really, really good. And the fact that they recorded this like into one microphone in a church with a single take. Maybe the reason they chose this version is because the original one's lyrics are kind of about drugs. Pretty common in the Velvet Underground oeuvre, as it were. But this version is more, sounds like they're singing more about the girl, about this, this sort of heartbreaking song about this girl, which may be more appropriate for them to have done, disguising themselves in a church. But yeah, so I don't know. I kind of went from, this is one of the greatest things I've ever heard when I was younger to, it's a cover, and it's a pretty down the pipe one. Take that for what it's worth. I still think it's a great song. I wouldn't steer anybody away from it. I'll tell you that.
You're right. It is a kind of a down the pipe cover, especially of that live version of it. But I don't think that's a bad thing because it turns out so well. And then, remember, our last episode with Shriekback and their cover of the KC and the Sunshine Band, where they did try to put their spin on it by dropping that rap in the middle of it and threatened to torpedo what is one of the greatest disco songs of all time.
For what this is worth, as vocalists go, Margot Timmons is quite a good singer, where Lou Reed, not so much. So,
yeah.
If you like the sort of cleaner, prettier vocals, this is definitely the way to go. Yeah. If you like people what can sing.
I do. That's good. Hey, that's for me.
I don't know. Lou Reed is a thing, and you can take it or leave it, but it's
Sorry, I've offended Velvet Underground fans like 3 times already in the last 5 minutes. So moving on. Sorry, folks. They're great. I'm not a huge Velvet Underground fan, but I understand their place in music history. I'll put it that.
That's exactly where I'm at too. And they have songs I like, but for the most part, you have to appreciate what they were. You don't really have to appreciate the sounds that they made doing
it. Right. Some people may feel that way about our next band, but we shall see. This is one where, as I kind of hinted at in the introduction, the video is the polar opposite of the video for Cowboy Junkies. It is a fire hose of stuff, which maybe Scott has been able to untangle a little bit in his research. Let's see.
Well, it's starting to look like I'm going to run out of my favorite bands to talk about on this show because I've got another one this week. I'm going to talk about Sonic Youth, and the song is Teenage Riot.
Here he comes now. Stick to your guns and let him through.
So just a little bit about the band. They are an American rock band. They formed in 1981 in New York City. The original lineup, which has stayed intact for the majority of their career, is Thurston Moore on guitars and vocals, Kim Gordon on bass and vocals, Lee Ronaldo on guitar, and Steve Shelley on drums. A couple of drummers have come through and gone. A couple of auxiliary people have come and gone, but those four people have basically been Sonic Youth the entire time. They did hang it up, I believe, in 2005. They finally sort of called it quits. The reunion at Coachella is imminent, but for now they are done. So they originally sort of spawned out of what was called the No Wave movement in New York. This is like a group of artists that were making sort of anti-music, trying to break conventions. They combined that aesthetic with punk music at the time and came up with a sound that I think has been extremely influential on alternative rock music for a very long time. And it has been imitated a ton, but I'm not sure it's ever really been duplicated. It's hard to think of a band that you go, they sound like Sonic Youth. I mean, it doesn't come up too often. So this song, Teenage Riot, is the opening track on their 1988 album called Daydream Nation, which is considered their masterpiece. I'm certainly not going to argue with that. It's one of the defining albums of the alternative music movement of the early 90s. I think it could be argued that it's maybe one of the albums that got the ball rolling for alternative music. The band had been on SST Records for their first 4 albums. Then they signed to Enigma Records. Enigma releases this album, and then on the strength of this album, they were immediately courted and signed by Geffen Records. So Enigma kind of got the raw end of the deal, but they did get to put out this album, so that's kind of a win. According to the band and the liner notes of the album, this song is about a world where Jay Mascis, the lead singer and guitarist of Dinosaur Jr., becomes the president. I challenge anyone to read the lyrics of this song and get that out of it. I do not know where any of that comes from, but for what it's worth, that's what they say it's about. This song, compared to their previous stuff, the albums before this, was much more structured. It has verses and a chorus and a bridge, which they really had never done before. Those were all kind of new things for them at this time. So this video was produced by the band, obviously on a very low budget. It is a quickly edited onslaught of footage from famous music icons, sort of interspersed with footage of the band rocking out in what I assume is someone's very tiny New York City apartment. I tried to catch all the people in the video. I don't think I got them all, but here's a few. Jay Mascis is there, Neil Young, Patti Smith, Iggy Pop, Sun Ra, D. Boone for the Minutemen, Mike Watt, Ian MacKaye, Henry Rollins, Nick Cave, Tom Waits, and Kiss is in there. They're all there for half a second. You can barely tell they're there, and then it shows the band rocking out. It is, I said this earlier, it is a whirlwind of a video. It's almost too much, but I don't know, it kind of works for the song for me. Knowing what the song is supposed to be about, I'm not sure what the video means, but I've always thought the song was kind of about the reaction of teenagers to rock music, and the video sort of works with that interpretation, meaning that it just shows a bunch of music icons. I guess all of that can be debated. But what I think cannot be debated is the greatness of this song. Even at the ripe old age of, it's approaching 40 years old, I think it still sounds fresh and different and unique. And like I said before, I think a lot of bands were inspired by Sonic Youth to try new things and tune their guitars differently, etc. I'm not sure anyone has nailed it like they did. So after this album, Sonic Youth gets signed to Geffen Records, like I mentioned. Their hardcore fans start crying sell out, like fans are going to do when that happens. I will, however, defend their major label work. I think Goo and Dirty are both excellent albums. Most of the ones that come after that are still really good. I think some fans didn't like the polish that Geffen put on them, but honestly, I think it was going to happen anyway. If you listen to their albums in order from the beginning, you can hear them getting cleaner and more polished with each one. Now, if you were a big fan of, say, Bad Moon Rising, and then you took a little break, and then you bought Goo, then yeah, I get it. You're going to hear a totally different band. But if you listen to them in order, I think they were just kind of growing over the years. And Daydream Nation is not too far off from what they end up doing for Geffen. It's a little more raw, but it's still getting there. They're cleaning up their act, as it were. So just real quick for my personal part of this, I wanted to mention that I was not into Sonic Youth in 1988 when this was going on. I had heard the name. I never really looked into them. And then in 1990, 91, I forget exactly when, but somewhere around there, I went to see Neil Young and Crazy Horse live. They were touring on the album Ragged Glory, which is the album people bring up when they talk about Neil Young being the godfather of grunge. When you hear that, that's Ragged Glory is about the time that started happening. Sonic Youth opened for them on that show. And while the arena full of the old school Neil Young fans, to say that they hated Sonic Youth would be an understatement. They were actively trying to get them off the stage, which I think Sonic Youth kind of played into. But I was blown away by them. I went and bought Goo the next day. I started going backwards through their stuff. That's really when I became a fan. I mention that because, Sonic Youth did the thing they do live where they played for about 30 minutes and then they made noise for another 20 minutes. They stood on their guitars and they kicked the amps over and they basically destroyed everything. Tons of feedback, all of that stuff that they kind of got famous for. The next time I saw Neil Young a few years later, he was doing the same thing. And it always has kind of made me happy to think about Neil Young kind of standing on the side of the stage and watching Sonic Youth and going, man, I like what these kids are doing. I'm going to do that. I don't know. It brings joy to me for some reason. So anyway, that's Sonic Youth. Go ahead.
Just to start off with first, I do have to address one thing you said there about their earlier career, about how noisy and discordant that early stuff would have to be for Goo and Dirty to be considered slick and polished. That
Yeah.
if that's the slick and polished version of Sonic Youth, the old school version of it is in fact really noisy.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Man, I love this song. This is my favorite Sonic Youth song. Well, it's one of two. The other one that might be my favorite is Titanium Expose. And the funny thing about Titanium Expose is the first place that I ever got introduced to that song was on the soundtrack to the movie Pump Up the Volume, just like the Cowboy Junkies. That was where I first heard that song. And so I had a very, very similar experience. The first time I heard Teenage Riot was at KTXT on a shift when I had to play it. And so I got up there and put that on, and that first guitar hits and, gets into that riff that starts the song off, and just immediately my ears perked up and I was like, holy crap, this is Sonic Youth? Because I had always thought of them as being a more noisy and disjointed and all that. And I guess this really is kind of if you want to say poppy, it's kind of the poppiest song in their catalog. But still, I remember being like, wow, maybe I like these guys more than I thought I liked them. I mean, this is a really great song. So yeah, yet again, another one that I was introduced to at KTXT. The video, man, I love the video. And you pretty much listed everybody. I did see Marquis Smith in there from The Fall. That was the one guy that you didn't mention that I did see in the video. But everybody else that I recognized, I think you hit. And the cuts are so fast, it's hard to focus on anything. The one thought I had about it was them in that little space with kind of the American flag on the back wall. I don't know if it's a rehearsal space or an apartment or whatever it is, but it's where most of the footage of them playing came from. And, they're jumping around and they're jumping towards the camera and they're doing, the choreographed moves with the guitarists together, like a metal band might do and that kind of stuff. I wonder if all that was parody. I wonder if they were aping other rock videos doing that kind of stuff.
Very possible. That choreographed thing is almost what they show Kiss doing in their little half-second clip. Yeah,
it goes from Kiss and then right to that scene, and that was part of what made me think maybe this whole thing is kind of aping the rock star posing kind of deal, because you get Rollins doing the Rollins thing on stage and then you cut to them and they're all jumping around and banging into each other and stuff. So I don't know that was the case. I kind of like to think that it was, though, because it made that video that much more enjoyable to me. But anyway, yeah, loved the video, love the song. So great choice. Glad this one came up. Man, yeah, hard to beat Sonic Youth, or hard to beat Teenage Riot, I should say.
Obviously a big fan of Sonic Youth. Maybe not quite as big as you guys, but introduced to them at KTXT, just like you. Had not really run across anything, I think, before I got to KTXT. I don't think I've really gone through all their albums in detail, like over and over and over again. I think I've gone through each of them a couple times, and I know, a handful of their songs by heart. I will say that early on in the process of making the film 35,000 Watts, The Story of College Radio, available now on Tubi, when we were doing a teaser that wasn't meant to be seen like on YouTube or whatever, so I could choose any song I wanted because it wasn't something I had to get clearance for because it wasn't going to be like publicly released. The song I chose was actually Sonic Youth Cool Thing, was underneath the original teaser for 35,000 Watts, that when we were still thinking that maybe we could get like a development deal or something that we would send out to people, because it just embodied everything about, they embody college radio. The song's amazing. That's probably my favorite Sonic Youth song, but Teenage Riot is fantastic as well. But that's just how much, to me, they're not even my favorite band, but to me they embody college radio as much as the Pixies or R.E.M. or a handful of those bands where you just think of like the top tier of college radio bands. Sonic Youth is right there. Yeah, the video is something. As someone who edits video and film, I can't imagine trying to put that together. It's just so schizophrenic and so fast and so very lo-fi in a way that's endearing. It's really funny. I noticed this on a couple of videos. We we get our list from 120minutes.org, and they're the ones that have put together these lists of what was on 120 minutes, and they link directly to YouTube, so it's really easy to just click the link and you go to YouTube. But what I have discovered is that sometimes they put those on there years and years ago, and someone else has uploaded a better version since then. So like sometimes if I get a bad version of a video, I'll look and see if there's a better version. So for this one, naturally I did, and there is a newer version out there. It's in 1080p and it still looks exactly the same. But there is no that video. That's what that video looked like the day it came off the press. Like that is it. It is as lo-fi as it gets. But what my note is, it looks exactly the way Sonic Youth sounds. Like if there is someone you know in your life that's deaf and you want to explain to them what Sonic Youth is, have them watch that video. Like that's the best Sonic Youth experience I think a deaf person could possibly have. It feels like them in every way, and I can't even explain why necessarily. Part of it's being lo-fi and not being perfectly composed.
We've talked about this before, but one of their sort of signature things, in addition to a lot of other, but one of the things that kind of defines them is that thing we've talked about beautiful noise. Like there is nothing but chaos happening here, but somehow it all comes together, to make a very listenable song, I think. I mean, this is probably their most accessible, or one of their most accessible songs. Like Keith said, we'll reiterate that again. If Goo is the polished version of this band, you should hear what they were doing before that. Like their first two albums especially are just people in a studio trying to destroy instruments and recording it. Like that's really all it is. It's fun to listen to, I think. I mean, I find something cool about it. But yeah, this is what you're getting here, and beyond this is the cleaned up, radio-friendly version of Sonic Youth. The chaos of it, I think, is what's so appealing about it. And you mentioned Titanium Expose. That's another great example. Like, try to hum that riff to somebody. It's impossible. It's so discordant. And, but you listen to it, and it sounds great. It works. It's one of those bands that's so hard to put a label on, and yet, like, you can't deny what they've done at the same time.
Yeah, super, super influential. Another one that I, just absolutely associate. Anytime I hear a song, it puts me right back in the booth at KTXT, which is always fun. Like I like that, some bands I've kind of grown with, and so now they represent different things to me. And then there's certain bands like Cowboy Junkies, like Sonic Youth, that even though I have listened to them since, it's not like I didn't listen to them for the last 30 years, they just are they're always going to be associated with being in that booth and having those discoveries happen, during that time of my life. And so I appreciate all those bands. And actually, this was unintentional, but my choice is also in that category. I think I had maybe heard one song by these guys before, but my deep love for They Might Be Giants started at KTXT, and that opportunity to talk about them came up this month, October of 1988. 120 minutes played They Might Be Giants, Anna Ing.
In the glow of each other's majestic presence, listen in and hear my words. They're the ones you would think I would say if there was a me for you.
And so yeah, I think I had heard Birdhouse in My Soul, probably, which is on the album after the one that Anna Ing is on, Flood, that came out in 91, and that song broke containment and got into mainstream airplay, certainly on MTV and even a little bit on Top 40 radio. So that kind of came into my world. And I mean, being a pretty big nerd, I was able to kind of get like, wait a minute, these guys, there's something going on here. And that's, the early 90s for me was right when like all of a sudden I'm starting to discover all these bands that are unlike Poison and Motley Crue and Def Leppard and the stuff I was listening to. And They Might Be Giants is probably, on the far end of the scale of stuff that I was starting to be exposed to. I was like, this is unlike anything else I've ever heard. Like Sonic Youth, there is no other They Might Be Giants. You will never hear a song and be like, could that be They Might? No, you either know right away it's They Might Be Giants or it's not. There's no waffling on that. Like when they make a song, it is theirs, and you will know that, and it'll probably be fantastic, but not always. I mean, to be perfectly honest, not always. If you've gone through their entire catalog, it can be hit or miss. I'm not going to sit and try to defend every song They Might Be Giants has made, but I am absolutely about to defend this one. But first, They Might Be Giants formed in 1982. It is John Flansburgh and John Linnell. And it has been and always will be those two guys. I think they have a backing band that they tour with, they've played with. Other backing bands, really interesting going down the rabbit hole. They've done a lot of appearances on late night shows. And to see them just jump in with like Dave Letterman's band and Paul Schaefer, the world's most dangerous band. They jumped in, had with Doc Severinsen on the Carson, on the the Carson show. I don't guess Carson. I guess it was Leno at the time, but Doc Severinsen was still there, and played a version of Birdhouse in My Soul with like the full orchestra and Severinsen just blowing on it. Like they could just jump in and play with all these different bands that I think probably enjoyed jumping in with them and playing these really off the wall songs, just as much as they did. But it is kind of interesting to see those two kind of chameleon their way into these different setups and still just jam. But they actually met as teenagers in high school in Lincoln, Massachusetts. Spoiler alert, the name of the album that Anna Ing is on is called Lincoln, and I am guessing there's a connection there. They met as teenagers, but then went to separate colleges, didn't actually, stay in touch with each other, and then reunited because they both moved into the same apartment in Brooklyn, not same apartment building in Brooklyn on the same day. Literally like show up, they're moving into their apartments. They're like, hey, I know you. Became friends again, and the rest is kind of history. They formed a duo and started playing shows, and as happens, they started catching the ear of some folks and things took off. The name itself, which was something I had never looked into, comes from a 1971 film, which in turn comes from a Don Quixote quote. So Don Quixote was, if you know the story, is famous for mistaking the windmills on the horizon as being evil giants instead of windmills. So They Might Be Giants was something that he apparently said at some point during in one of those books or in the book. And that's where that comes from. So in 1986, they recorded their debut album, self-titled, and it included a song called Don't Let's Start, which is also an absolutely amazing They Might Be Giant song. Heavy rotation on college radio. They really, just like Violent Femmes, like REM, like they captured, Karen Glauber said this so well in the 35,000 Watts film. They captured the hearts of college radio DJs. Like something about them, something about They Might Be Giants just like really taps into college kids at that time, I think, in particular. And so they got a lot of support for that first album. That carried over into the second album, which is the one we're going to talk about now, called Lincoln. And Anna Ing, which was not actually a single in the U.S. off of this, but still managed to get to number 11 on the U.S. modern rock charts. So this was kind of their first, I guess, breakthrough into, I wouldn't say the mainstream, but it kind of set them up for what would be some mainstream success with Flood, the next album that came out later with Birdhouse in Your Soul, and Istanbul, Not Constantinople, both of those songs. I'd say your average person on the street probably, that's our age, has heard those two songs. But Lincoln is really the ones Lincoln is really the album that set them up for that success. And I think Anna Ing is clearly the standout. I would say on that album, and I would also say probably in their catalog, it's got to be top 2 or 3. It's, for me, it's number 1. Don't Let's Start is like a 1B. It's a 1A, 1B thing. But Anna Ing is, to me, just an absolutely perfect song and a perfect distillation of what They Might Be Giants does. Like, it just is them to a T. It is listenable. It's melodic. It's interesting in a way that other music at the time wasn't. Like it's just different from what other bands were doing. The lyrics and delivery aren't so like inscrutable that you're like sitting there trying to figure out what they're talking about. They are describing, someone that lives across the world and never having met that person is kind of the essence of the song. But the way they put it, and it's very poetic, the way that it all comes out in the song. So I love that, love the music, love the staccato guitars and just the juxtaposition of like the really kind of angular instrumental with like the really melodic vocal. Just top-notch song. The video, also top-notch. I fucking love this video. It is so great. It is so good. Directed by Adam Bernstein, who did 7 They Might Be Giant videos. He directed the video for Punk Rock Girl by Dead Milkmen. He directed the video for Love Shack by B-52s. He directed Baby Got Back. That's right, the same guy, Baby Got Back. He also has directed episodes of almost every major TV show you've ever heard of. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, 30 Rock, the new Silo on Apple TV, and like 30 or 40 others. He is a director extraordinaire. Apparently he's won Emmy Awards. He's very, very good at what he does. And he just gets to be absolutely unleashed. I don't know what the band gave him as like a guideline. I don't know if they just said, make us a video. There are tangential connections to the lyrical content of the song, but really it's just this collection of like slow motion, stop motion, time lapse, extreme close-ups, crane shots, long shots, super weird angles, all just like coming together, and it just works. It's as quirky as the song. It works perfectly with the music. I don't even know, like, I don't know why I love it as much as I do. There's certain things, the Ramones was the last time that I said like, I really, really love the video for Ramones Wanna Be Sedated, but I knew exactly why I loved it, and I could describe the video and talk about why they did it the way they did it, because it's kind of it's kind of like a bottle video. It's just set in that one scene and it plays out. They Might Be Giants is the opposite of that. It's everywhere. They're all over the place. It was filmed at Ward's Island Firemen's Training Center. So those weird buildings and all the weird spaces, because it was like a place where you train firefighters. So they were able to get that space and just use it to the best of its, like, I mean, they use every inch of it, it feels like, because they're just all over the place. I don't know what else to say about it. Love the song, love the video. I don't know how you guys feel about They Might Be Giants. They tend to be kind of polarizing. I feel like you're on my side, but we're about to find out.
Well, I am on your side. Well, we've talked before about bands that kind of do one thing and how that can get old sometimes. It came up with Violent Femmes, and there's been a couple others. And that's always kind of been the deal with They Might Be Giants for me. Like, I will say, however, though, that they, unlike some of those other bands, they have a ton of songs that I like. I think they work better in small doses. But I really, really do like these guys. I saw them live once, and that's a real treat if you ever get the chance. They're a fantastic live band. So I am in no way going to diss these guys. I just feel like a few songs at a time is all I really need. But that said, if I'm going to sit down and listen to 3 songs from these guys, there's a 99% chance that this is going to be one of them. I mean, this is just one of my all-time favorite songs. I've always loved it. And what I love about it is this. If anybody ever asked me, hey, tell me what I need to know about They Might Be Giants, it's right here. Listen to this, and you will know exactly what you're going to get from these guys and whether or not you're going to like it. So, sometimes it takes bands some time to settle into something, or they develop, or they, whatever you want to call it. This is not that. This is a fully formed thing, and this is pretty early in their career, and it's right there. And it does get bigger, and it gets more produced, and it gets more flashy, but it's always this. And, and for me, this is as good as they ever got. They, like I said, they have a ton of songs that I like, but this is just an all-timer for me. So, the video, I don't think I'd ever seen this one before. If I had, I didn't remember it. There isn't a whole lot going on here, like you said, and it obviously wasn't very expensive, but man, is it just perfect. It totally captures like the sort of manic, nerdy energy that fits this band. And even though it doesn't really have anything to do with the song, it just fits it magically. It's perfect. And so, yeah, no notes on this one. This is one of my all-time favorite songs. Great video to go with it. If you don't know anything about They Might Be Giants, you can start right here, and you'll know what you're getting. This is an all-time classic for me.
Well, believe it or not, this is a song that I heard for the first time at KTXT. all 3 of our picks today were that way. But yes, this is something I had never heard. I think I had heard the band name They Might Be Giants, but I was not familiar with them. And in fact, I know I had heard the band name They Might Be Giants, but I wasn't real familiar with them until I got to KTXT, and that was my first real introduction on them. And this is one of the first songs I ever played. And yeah, this song is just fantastic. You guys mentioned Don't Let's Start. You mentioned Birdhouse in Your Soul. Great songs. Another one a little bit later that I would mention from the 90s that I think is one of their best songs is called Until My Head Falls Off. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one, but I love that song as much as I love some of the earlier stuff too. So I can't claim to be a huge fan of these guys. I don't have I don't have any of their albums. Another one of these bands that I know more by song than I do by album. Yeah, you just can't beat this song. It's just really, really fantastic and quirky in a way. A lot of the times you hear the word quirky and you're like, that may send up a little bit of a red flag. These guys are quirky in the perfect way of being quirky. I mean, if that is ever going to be used as a compliment, it is going to be used as a compliment here, because that's what these guys are. They're quirky in just the most perfect way. The video, you guys mentioned a lot about it, and I don't know that I can add a whole lot to it. The funny thing about it is that one of the first note I took was, this is the perfect mix of video and song, which is exactly what you guys just said.
Yeah, it is. It's perfect. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the song. Like,
yeah,
it literally, nothing in this video has anything to do with the song, and yet it is perfect for it.
And I think it's exactly like what you said about the Sonic Youth video, Mike, is that if you know someone who's deaf and want to show them visually what They Might Be Giants is like, show them this video and they're going to have a real good idea of what They Might Be Giants is like. Couple of things I'll point out with the video, just a couple of moments that I really, really liked. There's a lot of the stuff in there where they're doing synchronized movements like at the same time. I really like the very beginning of the video where they're both sitting at those two desks, banging their hands on the desks in time to the beat of the song, and then just looking really like, had just these terrible agonized looks on their faces while they're doing it. That part I really liked. And then about 2.5 minutes in, there's a scene of them kind of like running down this colonnade or deal, and they've got their arms like kind of bowed out and they're running kind of bow-legged.
I knew you were going to pick that one right when you started saying it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what that is supposed to be, but they're doing it in perfect time, exact same move together. Man, I actually did like rewind and watch that through again just so I could see that little part of the video again. I don't know that you could possibly get a better mix of video and song than these two. Like it just works for whatever reason.
And I mean, that's a tough assignment. I feel like, coming into this, because you've got a song that's clearly really good. Like, I feel like anybody that, and considering Adam Bernstein had either worked with them before or was going to, like, he clearly liked this band. And I feel like he had to have felt like, I need to make this good because this could be these guys' breakthrough. Because like you said, it's a super quirky song, but in the most accessible way possible. Like, I don't know that you could combine something so quirky and yet something that isn't going to put off people that normally might be put off by something that's quirky. I mean, you could hand this song to almost anyone that loves music, and I think that they're going to just be like, oh man, yeah, I totally get I get this band, I get it, I get the whole thing, just because it's that good. And that's not true of their entire catalog. I mean, for sure, they have songs that are too quirky for sure. That does exist.
This song is quirky without being novelty, and I think that's the line. A lot of their stuff gets novelty. That's where I think the difference would be. This song is very quirky, but it's not. It's not goofy. It's so catchy and hooky.
It's catchy and it rocks. I mean, it actually still kind of rocks. Yeah,
it's got a great beat and you can dance to it.
Yeah. If you haven't heard They Might Be Giants, or maybe you've just heard Birdhouse in Your Soul, which I think is a great song, but I could see how maybe that one didn't win you over. This is the place to start. Or if you're trying to turn someone on to They Might Be Giants, you're like, what should I start with? Don't even think about it. This is the one to start with. Absolutely, 100%. And like Scott said, you're going to know a minute in whether you or if you're giving this to someone else, if you're going to like not only the song, but like They Might Be Giants. Like, if you don't like this, you're not going to like They Might Be Giants. If you do like this, yeah, you're going to have, you've got some fun exploring to do.
You guys mentioned that you heard this song at KTXT, and again, I think I was a little ahead of that, and I meant to mention this earlier. I wanted to give a shout out to my sister, whose musical taste and mine never gelled at all, but she actually bought this album for what reason I don't know, and put it on, and I was like in my room, and I remember going, "What is that?"
Hey.
And that's when I found this song and this band. So shout out to my sis.
Shout out for sure.
Who other than that would have only turned me on to like New Kids on the Block or something.
Oh man! All right, we are at the magical inflection point of every episode where it can take any number of turns. We were on a hot streak with our mystery song for a while there. My personal opinion is that hot streak ended an episode or two ago. I've had a couple that I don't want to just say are straight out duds, but I certainly, the last one was a dud. I'll just say it. The last one was not good. It was not good. We all three agreed.
An understatement.
Yeah, dud might be singing high praises for that song. Again, I apologize. I know people put work into these things. I know someone at some point was like, "Ooh, yeah, that's pretty good. Let's put that on the album." But we struck out last episode. This time, I think I'm going to say we're back on track, but I don't want to lead the witness. So we'll let Keith take us into it and see where we land.
Well, I did not do this on purpose, but today for our Mystery Act, I have picked another Canadian band that was formed in 1985, just like the Cowboy Junkies. This is a band called The Pursuit of Happiness, and the song is called I'm an Adult Now.
No more boy meets girl, boy loses girl. More like man tries to understand what the hell went wrong. 'Cause I'm an adult now. Whoa, I'm an adult now. I've got the problems of an adult. I'm an adult now.
Like I said, they were formed in Canada in 85 by singer-guitarist Mo Berg and drummer Dave Gilby. They've had a couple of other guys that are kind of been the main members of this band, the guitar player Chris Abbott and Brad Barker, who's the bass player. And then they also have a female backup singer named Renee Suchi. And those five right there have been the band for most of its existence. They did have an early bass player before Barker, but he was out pretty early, and Barker's been in for most of the band's history. The other thing I thought was kind of funny about lineup-wise with these guys is that it's been a stable lineup at every position except for that female backing vocal position. They've had 6 other female backing vocalists before Renee Suchi joined the band. So I don't know why they keep running off backing vocalists, but that was a thing earlier in their career, apparently. This song was originally recorded in 1986 as something that they financed, and then later on, when they got signed to a label, they re-recorded it for their debut album in 1988. That album was called Love Junk. And it was re-released as a single again in 88 and actually made it all the way to number 6 on the Billboard Alternative Songs chart. So this song actually got some traction for these guys. I had never heard it before, but yeah, it actually, like I said, got to number 6 on the modern rock charts. They haven't put out a whole lot of music in the last 20 or so years, but they are still a live band. They still do play together live, and actually were inducted into the Canadian Indies Hall of Fame back in 2006. So apparently Canada has a Hall of Fame strictly for indie rock acts or indie acts. So who knew? And The Pursuit of Happiness is actually in that particular
Who
hall.
else is in there?
Who knows? That's a good question. We should probably do a little research on that.
That's brutal.
Yeah. Who knows? This one, I think I'm going to have a different take from what you guys had, apparently, because I really tried to get into this song and like it, and I just did not. It's a generic hard rocker. There's nothing going on musically in it that did much for me. I tried to think that the lyrics were clever about a young person becoming an adult and going through the trials and tribulations of that, and I couldn't get there. They are just not very good lyrics to my mind. Yeah, I have to say, I did not really care for this song a whole lot. I did listen to one other of their songs. They had another hit called She's So Young. I like that one a lot better. It's very different. It's kind of a power pop jam, whereas, like I said, this kind of is a bad hard rock song. So I can't say that I'm a big Pursuit of Happiness fan per se. Of 2 songs, they're batting 500 for me. So yeah, we'll take it for whatever it is. If you like hard rockers, spin this one and see what you think. The video, or videos, I guess I should say, are interesting. I'm interested to see what you guys saw when you went to watch the video, because there are 2 of them. In 86, they self-financed a video that got onto the Canadian music channel Much Music, and that was how they ended up getting discovered and getting their major label deal, which is what allowed them to record Love Junk and then re-record this song for that album. They did, though, then in 88 record another video for it, a different video that actually had some money behind it. I saw both versions of that video. I did not know I was going to see both versions of that video. I clicked through the link on 120minutes.org on one occasion and got the newer version of it, which is not very good. It's got some like kids wearing like war fatigues crawling around like this war zone, and the band's playing in that war zone. And then later they're playing the song again somewhere else, and there's like an ungodly amount of fog. Like somebody bought like 8 fog machines and turned them all on high at the same time to put fog around the band. It was just ridiculous. You can't even see the band. They're just kind of aimless shapes in the fog. Not a good video. At all, in my opinion. The original video, when I went back this morning to rewatch the video again, I clicked through the link, and somehow that same link took me to the original video, which is just the guys playing on the street with like some people coming up and watching them play. At one point, there's a little kid that comes up, and the singer like bends down and stares face to face with this little kid and sings right into his face for about 30 seconds, which I thought was kind of interesting. So as far as videos go, I thought that the original low budget video was far superior to the bigger budget video. But the problem was that in both of those videos, it was the Pursuit of Happiness song, I'm an Adult Now, which I didn't care for. So neither of the videos did a whole lot for me, just for that reason. But I think, having listened to you guys a little bit as we intro this, I may have been in the minority on my opinions on this. So Pursuit of Happiness, I'm Adult Now. How you guys have at it?
I'm not going to sing the praises of this song. Maybe I'm comparing it to the last episode, and the improvement over that, is pretty substantial. Well, a couple things. One, this song apparently charted higher than Anna Ing on the U.S. modern rock charts.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, which that just goes to show that charts are sometimes worthless. Like, no offense, but to me, my note is that this song is really close to being really, really good. It's really close. And the thing that you said about the backup singers actually ties into my feeling about this, which is that I just looked at their Wikipedia really fast and just saw that they had backup singers. That's not immediately evident watching the video. They should have used the damn backup singers on the chorus. The song is fine until you get to the chorus. And then he doesn't have the vocal like charisma. Maybe he does in other tracks and maybe this was a choice or whatever, but like his vocals don't take the chorus over the top that you need to make this song work. Cause like the instrumental is there. The guitar solo is just scorching, man. I love the guitar solo. He was killing it. And like the verses are, I guess, kind of talk song or whatever. So like you don't, whatever. And then when he actually starts to sing the chorus and it's like, that's where they could really have landed the plane. They just don't. And so that's where I think the whole thing just kind of falls apart. Knowing that they've rotated through backup singers, maybe that's why the backup singers were mad because they didn't get to participate enough, because they should have, absolutely. Like him trying to kind of sing, because he's not, again, maybe other songs is different, but like he's not a very powerful, charismatic singer, at least in this instance. Having the backup singers maybe would have helped push that over. But that was kind of my thought, was like, I like where this is going. I kind of like the lyrics of, I mean, it's a little whatever, but like I get where he's coming from. Like it sucks to be an adult because of this or that or the other, and then it just doesn't get over that hump. And that's where I'm kind of like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, where like it just doesn't quite do it for you. I apparently saw the old video, the original video, because I loved the video. I thought the video was actually really charming. Love the dude in the red zip up jacket that like drops a coin in the guitar case and then just commences to dancing his ass off for like 20 seconds, just gets down and funky, and then just like casually like stops and puts his headphones on and goes about his day. Like, mwah, chef's kiss. Loved that moment. The little kid coming up and just getting kind of shouted at like in the face for like 30 minutes is kind of hilarious. Like there's a part of me that, as a kid, that would have absolutely terrified the bejesus out of me and I would have hated it, but it's just kind of funny in that the way that goes down. But yeah, the dude in the red jacket just steals the show. That to me, I think, was enough to put this over the top of like music and video together. If I have to go like from a scale of 1 to 10, it would have been like a 4, but the video put it up to a 5, and then that guy dancing put it up to like a 6. So that's what like tilted me into like, I'm gonna put this in the good category, but just barely. If it had a good chorus, it would have hit 7. That's about where I landed on this one. Yeah, that's what I got. I'm shocked that it charted. Shocked that they're famous in Canada. Shocked about many things that you said that I did not think about this band, but that's kind of where I landed on it.
Well, real quick, I was going to say, I think you could add up my score for both videos and it would not reach a 7, but that's just
the video you described may take one down off of my
yeah.
Like that does not sound good at all.
So I think I'm more leaning towards Mike's take on this. I didn't think the song was great, but compared to that thing we watched last week, I mean, this is Bohemian Rhapsody compared to that. So I think I liked it just because it sounded sort of fresh and fun and whatever. I thought the video, however, was great, and I love the random things in it. I saw the old one too. I think the dude dancing, you mentioned that. You mentioned the little kid coming up and getting berated. I like that. The song is pretty simple stuff, but I actually liked some of the lyrics. I thought some of them were kind of clever. I liked when he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, "No more boy meets girl, boy loses girl. Now it's man tries to figure out where it all went wrong." I like that, and there were some other lyrics like that I thought were kind of clever. So it got a few genuine laughs out of me, sort of the video. I'll give it a 7 overall. Well done. I wanted to give a shout out to the drummer who stands and has the kick drum and the lone snare. I always kind of dug that. Stray Cats, Violent Femmes, you always see that kind of thing. The Avett Brothers more recently. But yeah, it's I always like that kind of drumming, so shout out to him. It's always a good look when you're trying to rock out. I thought this was fun. And maybe it's because of the disappointment of last week. I mean, this is nothing I'm going to go out and buy or listen to, or, I'm certainly not going to become a huge Pursuit of Happiness fan, but for this 3.5 4 minutes, I had a pretty good time watching this, so that's where I landed.
It's interesting to me that both of you guys saw the original version of the video, because like I said, I did most of my prep work for this yesterday, and I watched that video 3 or 4 times, and linked to it off from 120minutes.org, and it was the the newer version of the video.
Did the video play more than once on these playlists?
And that's another thing. So this morning, like I said, I was going back and trying it again, just going to rewatch the videos real quick before we started up. And it does play twice. And I thought that exact same thing. It's like, oh, I must have done the link on the other one. No, I went both links, and it took me to the original video this time
Really?
rather
Because
than the other
I
one.
swear I clicked on that. That's usually how I do it. So
Yeah,
that's
I don't know.
Now,
Yeah,
when
it's weird.
after I watched the video, it immediately rolled into the live video of this,
Ah, gotcha.
which
Well,
was
there is another music
interesting.
video out there for this, so if you're interested in it,
it
go
was-
check it out and see what you think.
The live video was obviously shot somewhere in Canada where these guys are insanely popular. Like they are rocking out on a stage in front of thousands of screaming fans. So
Maybe they were opening
yeah,
for
I
Brian
don't
Adams.
get it either. But
That
it's
seems impossible, but
maybe at this time Canadians were starving for music. Right?
there will be a Canadian somewhere that is going to comment and be like, you guys just completely like have missed
you
the boat
missed
on
it.
this. You guys don't get it. These guys were huge, but and they're not terrible. That there have been worse bands that we've come across. They kind of remind me of a little bit of the Godfathers.
That other song, though, let me look. She's So Young. That song sounds nothing like this at all. Absolutely. So, it's just a
So
different
maybe
thing.
this just isn't representative of what they do.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know. I've only heard the
I just
two.
thought this
so-
was kind of clever and fun. I don't know. Like I said, nothing groundbreaking, but it was an enjoyable watch for me.
Yeah. I might have to go listen to a couple other ones. And for all our Canadian listeners, you can throw this apology on the pile of apologies that Americans owe you guys for everything else that we have been doing to you over the last year or two. Just add this one to that. Sorry, we just Pursuit of Happiness. But there, and funny, I mentioned the Godfathers because it kind of reminded me. I was looking at in October. I don't know if you guys noticed they had like a live show on 120 Minutes that they played at the end of, and the Godfathers apparently opened that show because there was like 4 Godfathers tracks and it was like the Sugar Cubes and
Yeah, I
somebody
think
else.
it might have been the Godfather's opening for the Sugar Cubes.
I think it was.
The way I looked at it, they did 3 songs, and
actually-
the Sugar Cubes come out.
There were 3 bands on that bill. I remember specifically looking at this. It was the Godfathers, the Sugar Cubes, and Living Color. So 3.
Living Colour, right.
Oddly enough, I've talked about recently. We're all on that bill.
I
Yeah,
just
all 3
noticed
that we
the
chose.
Sugar Cubes played damn near their whole album, so I assumed they were the headliners of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that looked like the Godfathers and Living Color only got like 3 or 4 songs each, and then Sugar Cubes got to play about a dozen or about 8 or 10 songs.
When I hear the Sugar Cubes, I'm always like, who should open for these guys? Living Color. What a perfect match. It would be a great show. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it, but I don't know who thought that they must have just been in town at the same time or something, because that's a very weird. I can't imagine Living Color like opening for them on a tour or something.
And
but
the Living
maybe,
Color on
who
that
knows?
tour opened for the Rolling Stones.
Let's see that does
That
make
was
sense.
like the Stones' big comeback was Steel Wheels.
The Steel Wheels tour,
Yeah,
yeah.
they did that big tour. Living Color opened for them, and Mick Jagger sort of gets a little credit for discovering them, I think.
That makes a lot more sense than the Sugar Cubes. I'll put it that way. But anyway, you can also see that at 120minutes.org if you want to go back and watch. So all those videos are linked. Go to October 1988. You can see the stuff that we chose. You can see that, I think it was a live show from Auburn University, I believe, was where they recorded it. And so sometimes you'll see that. I think we're going to also start to see more videos of the actual 120-minute show. So we see like the interstitial stuff and the VJs. I've noticed that some of that starts to be available as we get a little later on, and more people have VCRs and more people were doing recording. So there's more stuff available for them to pull for. So we might be able to actually watch the actual show and see some of the stuff, because I think that'll be interesting just to kind of put it into perspective. But anyway, what an amazing episode. I mean, honestly, like 3 iconic college radio bands and alternative bands all in a row. Great songs, all 3. My guess is most people listening to this are familiar with them, but if for some reason any of those 3 bands have snuck by you, I would say these songs are great places to start with each of those bands as well, for sure. It's like you don't even have to kind of like dig and be like, where should I start listening? Start with the ones that we chose, and I think all of them represent the band pretty well. If you like what you hear, you're probably going to like more of the stuff, and if you don't, then I mean, Cowboy Junkies might have a little more variety, but I mean that's pretty. But like Sonic Youth and They Might Be Giants, I feel like if you don't like these 2 songs, you probably are not going to like anything else that they do. But I think that probably applies to Cowboy Junkies as well. Apparently not Pursuit of Happiness, so that might be your mileage may vary on that one. You might want to dig a little deeper if you want to check them out. But That's October of 1988. Folks, don't forget about 35,000 Watts, the story of college radio, a documentary film about college radio, where we talk about bands like Sonic Youth and Cowboy Junkies, and They Might Be Giants. All get mentioned in there, I think, at some point. It is available on Tubi, so go to tubi.com and search 35,000 Watts, and you can watch it right this very minute. We will be doing November of 1988 in our next episode, so come back and join us right here on 120 Months. We'll see you there.